Hello YouTube and welcome to Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily focus on Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. And of course I have a Patreon and Discord, more info at the end of the video. So I've been talking about the upcoming book Impossible Magic for the past 2 weeks, but Paizo has another book coming out, a Starfinder book called Absolom Station. As always, I did get an early review copy, but there were no strings attached, and Paizo is in no other way compensating me. So this new book, technically called Absolom Station, Center of the Galaxy, is all about, well, Absolom Station. Shocker, I know. This book is similar to a Pathfinder Lost Omens book. That is to say, the book is part lore book for the Galaxy of Starfinder 2nd Edition, and part player option book. And it also has GM resources. There's info about Absolom Station, new enemies for your GM to throw at you, and new player options. I won't be able to cover everything today, so I'm just going to give you a general overview. Let's get into it. But before we get started, I want to point out that the digital version comes with a separate file that is a map of Absolom Station, along with like a fake tourist poster for Absolom Station. If you get the physical copy, this is probably an actual pull-out map, but I don't have the physical copy. Hey guys, editor Prime here. After I wrote and recorded this, Paizo put out a video showing that yes, indeed, the map is physical. A second thing before we get started, just as a reminder, Absolom Station is the economic hub of the Starfinder universe. This is because the Starstone, a magical super rock from Pathfinder, is at the heart of Absolom Station. It seems to be an infinite power source, but also it makes Starfinder's faster-than-light travel system, the Drift Drive, very quick and convenient. Long story short, it's super fast and easy to travel to Absolom Station, so most people go there for a trade. That's why it's called the center of the galaxy. It's not like in the actual physical center of the galaxy. So there are essentially 5 sections of the book, and the first 2 aren't really what we're going to talk about today. Section 1 discusses how Absolom Station is physically laid out, what the different physical sections are, what the housing situations are, how people can move to and fro, that kind of thing. Section 2 is about how the station is laid out socially. By this I mean the different neighborhoods of Absolom Station and what you can do there. I counted 21 different areas, each of which has 4-ish pages of content, so there's a lot of info here if you want to round out your knowledge of Absolom Station. Some sections cover vast areas like the flotilla of ships surrounding Absolom Station, jokingly called the Armada. The other sections might only cover a single building, like the Golden Vault, which is a giant church to Abadar, god of business, commerce, and society. These sections also run the gamut from the wealthy Blue Rise Towers, where all the successful megacorporations have their offices, to Bot Scrap, a literal junk heap where the poor reside and survive off of recycling and repurposing old tech that just winds up there. It's important to know that you can't go to every section I just listed as a level 1 character. The Archimonarium is a magic school that has very tight security, and you can't just casually walk in if you're not a student. And the Starstone reactor is sealed off from the public with ancient security robots. But let's move on to the more rules-heavy stuff, starting with Alien Archive, which is a section of enemies you can fight. I will say it is a bit weird that the enemy section is in the middle of the book. Usually Paizo likes to put their monsters at the end of books, but here we are. Most of the enemy stat blocks here are NPCs, people like corporate bodyguards, gangs, or police. Most are listed as effectively human, but there's a little aside assuring you that you can change them up to whatever ancestry you want with little fuss. Most of these stat blocks are as generic as possible so that they can be broadly applicable. For example, this security goon could be a member of the Stewards, the police force of Absolom Station, but they could just as easily be a security guard in some foreign planet. It loses a bit of flavor, sure, but I'm glad you can repurpose them without having to change things up too much. There is a section on space goblins, which are, of course, just goblins in space. Note the level 7 internet griefer who has started griefing in real life. Very goblin-esque. There are also these special security robots. These particular ones guard the Starstone, but like, you could easily repurpose them for some other use on some other planet. There's like one thing you would have to change about them, but it would not be hard. The second to last section is all about some of the different factions in Absolom Station. This factions section starts off with a brief discussion of a bunch of different kind of regulatory factions for Absolom Station. Factions like the Absolom Traffic Control, which not only directs spaceships, but like is in charge of docking and stuff like that. Then there's the conductors, who are like the engineers that fix things. After this section, there is a very brief rundown of some galaxy-wide factions that have a presence on Absolom Station, some of which we've talked about before on this channel. Factions like the Hell Knights and the Knights of Galarian, those have shown up in Galaxy Guide before, and I covered them then. But the big part of this section are 4 new factions that are big players on Absolom Station. Factions that Paizo has not covered before, at least not in great detail in Pathfinder 2e. The Aspis Consortium is an evil counterpart to the Starfinder Society. That is to say, they are an evil, money-driven adventuring guild, though they are also into like venture capitalism and private equity stuff, real nasty business practices, though they have a phenomenal PR team, so not everyone knows how really nasty they are. There's info on the Aspis Consortium and also an archetype that is all about being a corporate officer, which could be an Aspis Consortium agent, but it could be some other company as well. I like the feat Unexpected Downsize, where you can trick people into believing that you have the power to fire them, which means they can't count their allies as allies. This section also has some new items. I love the Assault Briefcase, which is a briefcase that is reinforced so it can act like a shield and can even have a built-in gun. There's also a few new augmentations, which are sorely needed as Starfinder doesn't have a whole lot of augmentations right now. They also introduce a new consumable here called a data mine, which is a consumable that gives you a temporary bonus to hacking. It's consumable, I guess, because once you use one once, people will figure out how it works and patch that particular program out the next day, I guess. The cool thing is that they provide you with a bonus to computers so that you can use that bonus instead of your own bonus if you don't actually have the computer skill necessary to hack something. The Ghost Couriers are a group of daredevils that explore strange places. For the most part, they explore the ghost levels. The ghost levels are actually a whole separate demiplane with weird architecture that connects to Absolom Station, and there are weird entities in there and also a bunch of useful stuff. And let's be honest, it's just the back rooms, but maybe slightly more safe, I guess? At least you can enter and exit it a little bit easier. Also, each venture into the ghost levels is called a limb dive, and Ghost Couriers will post a video of their limb dive to their community so that the community can analyze it frame by frame and help future Ghost Couriers. Very Backrooms community-esque. I kinda love it, not gonna lie. Made me think of the Backrooms YouTuber Brugly. There is a Ghost Courier archetype, of course, which is all about survival, mostly by being smart and mobile. The base dedication makes you trained in survival and also makes you trained in a secret Ghost Courier language. And there are other feats like making you trained in computers from poring over limb dive videos. Eventually, you can start messing with dimensions yourselves by doing things like teleporting via walls, which is kind of evocative of no-clipping a big backrooms thing. It's obviously not the same, but it's kind of evocative. There's also a bunch of gear here that could be useful for going to the ghost levels, but it's also just generally pretty useful. Like a unique laser gun that can bend around cover, or a flashlight that can help you find traps. There's also a ghost cloak that helps you hide items, but it's just the hazmat suit from the backrooms, like just straight up, it's the hazmat suit. Next up is the Eyeswide Agency, a group of private detectives. The detective agency will take on any mystery, from doing a standard background check to speaking with the dead for answers. The whole thing has a very film noir vibe to it. Most Eyeswide detectives are psychic, but some are just pretty darn good detectives. There is, of course, an Eyeswide dedication. The base dedication gives you limited telepathy or increases your limited telepathy if you already have it. And then there are just a bunch of extra mind reading kind of feats, including a feat that actually gives you mind reading as a spell. And of course, there's a feat or two that is somewhat combat relevant. There's also new items, including a trench coat, a Star Day Night special instead of a Saturday Night special, which was a type of gun back in the day, and a fedora that increases psychic abilities. Next up are the stewards, who are kind of like the police of Absolom Station, and I mean that in the best way. They tend to have a pretty good reputation of not being corrupt or anything. And technically they are not just cops for Absolom Station, but for most of the Pack world, so it is a pretty big organization. There is one last archetype here, Peacekeeper. This is a generic police officer archetype, which could be used for the stewards, but you could use it for any other campaign, even if you weren't in the Starfinder universe. It gives you weapon familiarity with all weapons that have the non-lethal trait, which is nice if you don't want to be a murder hobo. There's a lot of really good feats here, like being able to treat any armor as 1 degree lighter for proficiency purposes, which could be really good on Solarians or Envoys. There's also a slew of new items like grenades and several non-lethal weapons. There's also some new armors. The Peacekeeper armor seems straight up better than Skyfire armor, though it is almost twice as expensive, so The final section of the book shows us 2 new ancestries, the Narifoids and the Noir. Narifoids are kind of like a combination snail-hermit crab. They look like snails, but they have shells made of a bunch of scavenged junk formed into a shell. Narifoids are rare, small aberrations that are a bit slower than normal, but they make adhesive gunk on their bodies, meaning they start play with a climb speed. They have low light vision, and I guess they can store emergency rations in their hermit crab shell thing, because they can go a month before worrying about starvation. They also have the cosmic trait, meaning that they are immune to background space radiation and can survive in the vacuum of space. This space survival leads them to often hitch rides on passing hulls of spaceships. Narifoids can actually turn their shells into armor that they don't actually have to buy, which is really nice. A bunch of Narifoid feats are based on repurposing the scrap in their hermit crab shell things. There's a feat to turn that stuff into a shield, or even into medicine? Ew. There are also feats that deal with the sticky stuff that they can make. Noir are a Minotaur-like ancestry, and while they are big, they aren't as big as actual Minotaurs, meaning they're only medium-sized. They are also a bit smarter, as they get a bonus to intelligence instead of strength. They have dark vision, a horn attack, and they don't suffer penalties in 0G. There are also a bunch of different kinds of Noir, like having a unicorn-like horn or being really lithe, or there are Noir that are actually so big that they are considered large-sized. A lot of Noir ancestry feats lean into deep understanding of mazes and labyrinths, which is why I suspect they get a bonus to intelligence. Also, at higher levels, they can mess with gravity a bit, I guess because that's a Noir thing. And that's it for the Absolom Station book. Should you buy it? Well, if you are into Starfinder, I would seriously consider it. I know, most Pathfinder Lost Omen books are like 50-50 for most people because there's a lot of fluff, and not everyone plays the default Pathfinder world of Galarian. But unlike Pathfinder Lost Omen books, this Starfinder book seems to be mostly new content. 2 new ancestries, 4 new archetypes, a bunch of new items, and a bunch of NPCs for your GM to just grab and go. There's also a bunch of stuff here you could easily transplant into another world. You could easily supplant the idea of the ghost levels into a different Starfinder campaign, even a campaign that is not set in the primary Starfinder universe. But that's all I had to say about this book. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion. Hey, as a reminder, I have a Patreon. I'm going to try and post something fun there once a month, but honestly, it's just a way to keep this channel financially viable. Just a few bucks a month, and you can help me do things like buy portable microphones so I can do more shorts and on-location shots. Let me know what you think. I also have a Discord server. Drop by and say hi. We would love to talk to you. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That tells not only me, but also YouTube that you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming.